There we go. I've got this big down jacket on, so don't mind me. It's just a little chilly, even though it's a sunny day. Well, this is Carpo here for a little discussion about good and evil and all this stuff. This is coming from the standpoint of a guy who lives one life, my own. And I observe, I research, I react, I apply these things that I've learned, and I try to ask myself, what is the most fruitful path in life for the individual and those around them? And I get into many random discussions about subjects such as good and evil. And, I was kind of, in my mind, I was thinking about the comparison to the weak and strong forces that we use in nature. The weak and strong nuclear force, and how we consider gravity to be actually one of the weakest forces. It's almost non-existent. In fact, for what it is, it's still not quite understood in its full complexity, but it's something that we endure every day. Gravity, it's just something we know is inherent. So it's one of those things that we know but don't quite understand. Just like some of these other forces, I'm trying to use this as a metaphor to segue into weak and strong belief forces or religious forces. A strong force may be one that says that all of nature is connected. Now, we can't prove that nature communicates with the plants and the animals, that Gaia is alive or that the earth is alive. We can't prove that the earth is conscious in its own way. But we all seem to agree that the earth is an entity, if you will, of its own making. It regulates itself. Some of the weaker forces, they're lesser known, are the actual specific belief forces, the religions themselves. But they've become strong forces, or they've at least appeared to be strong forces. And this is merely because of the people perpetuating it. For example, a Mormon is going to believe that Mormonism is the path. There's no way around it. You can't convince them otherwise, and it's not worth the time to try to do so. But there are very few Mormons in the world, really, and it's a very new religion. Scientologists may be the same way, and I use this to compare to when a Christian says, well, so many people have believed this for so long, it's got to be true. This is a very subjective view of what reality is. And, I wanted to get into things like Luciferianism, because it's a discussion I've had many times with people who, some of them link this with evil, and some of them link it with light and knowledge. And I've always seen this this tear down the middle of, it's like a split down the middle of truth, the truth seeking of knowledge. Some people can't seem to get past people like, say, Manly Hall, and he's really the focus here that I wanted to make. Manly Hall was, to me, has been one of the most influential and most eloquent speakers that I've ever listened to. And not just because he's a smooth talker, or was a smooth talker, because he really wasn't. He had some hard edges in the way that he spoke, and it was almost condescending a lot of the time, as if he had gotten just so frustrated with society and how selfish we'd become. So I got into a discussion the other day on this comment, a video I'd uploaded about Manly Hall about a year ago, and basically the comments ended up, this guy was saying that, basically telling me that the Freemasons, that their god is Lucifer. And since so many presidents have been Freemasons through history, it means that the Freemasons' goal is to run this world into the ground. It's a very short-sighted view and lack of understanding of how Congress works, how the country actually works, but more than that, misunderstanding of Freemasonry and why Freemasonry went underground in the first place, why Freemasonry was developed in the first place. To give people a status within a group that wasn't related to a particular belief system and religion. Because I hear people say that, they're all Luciferians, or they're all Satanists, or they're all this or that, or they're even, godless nothings. The truth is that most Freemasons all Freemasons are welcome to join with any belief. But Manly Hall was beyond Freemasonry. Let's just put it that way. So anyway, the point is that this guy started telling me all these things about Manly Hall. He even put a quote on there saying that, implying that Manly Hall had said something about sacrificing human souls to please Lucifer, or something to that effect. And I thought, could you provide a link for me, please? So what I did was I wanted to Google it to see if I could find anything myself. Maybe I'm always open to learning new things if something new is to be found. But when you Google Manly Hall, or when you go on YouTube and Google Manly Hall, 99% of them are videos from Manly Hall, because people are so inspired by the man. So I started asking myself, what's more important? What a person believes, what God they serve, or what message that they're conveying? And that's the main focus here of this video, is what is more important? The message that's being conveyed, or the belief that may or may not be behind that message. For example, if I have a Christian on one side and someone who calls themselves a Luciferian over here, and they're butting heads and they're both saying the other side's wrong. Yet I have the Christian over here telling me that you don't need all this knowledge, all you need to do is just ask Jesus for forgiveness and go to heaven. And then you have this Luciferian who just sounds so evil. Ooh, Luciferian. Meanwhile, if you understand the term Lucifer, it means light bringer. And it was also the name for Phosphorus and Hesperus, the morning and evening stars, otherwise known as Venus. But you can get into all the details of that. None of it matters. None of it matters where it originated, and none of it matters really what a person chooses to believe or worship or practice. What's important is what is the outcome that they desire. So for many people, they would say that Freemasons desire to rule the world. In fact, tying Freemasonry to the New World Order is just another old cop-out. The people who really want to run the world, they don't have any God. They don't have any beliefs except money. And they love it when everything's hidden behind the guise of being another group's problems, whether it be blaming the Jews, blaming the Muslims, or blaming Freemasons, or various other European cultures, or blaming the U.S., or blaming any country. It's not a country or a group, or blaming the Vatican. It's society as a collective, as a whole. So not one of us can sit here and go through all these different systems and really understand fully what it means to believe this or to study that. And this occult knowledge is, you can't be a Christian and an occultist at the same time, because they would, contradict each other. So what are we left with? We can draw conclusions about the people that don't believe what we believe and say that they're wrong. But this leads to people making comments like that fella did about Manly Hall. Manly Hall is the most inspirational speaker that I've ever heard. And the message that he tried to convey was that people need to stop being selfish, that people need to stop wanting materials, that people need to stop treating each other like shit and treating the planet like shit. And that was the gist of his whole message. And I've listened to thousands of hours of Manly Hall. And I could tell by the way this guy was commenting that he probably knew nothing about Manly Hall at all. And this is spreading bullshit, because people need to understand what they're talking about. And I found him Manly a little condescending over time. But I understood where he was coming from. He was frustrated with a world that was not catching up, and today it's even worse. If you imagine Manly Hall being frustrated back in the 60s, imagine today, in today's world, how frustrated we are. And we don't have a Manly Hall. We don't have any speakers. We don't have any serious Manly Halls or joking Alan Watts. We have these new propagandist truther channels that are trying to just spread fear and nonsense. And it seems like some of the ones that are actually trying to make a difference and show people are trying to direct them a certain direction. And that was one thing about Manly Hall. He never said, you have to worship this or you have to believe that. He never mentioned anything about... in fact, I've heard Manly Hall say that that religion is not the problem. It's dogma and attachment to that being the only belief system. He said that all religions were developed in their own areas and they suit their own environments. Some of the things I've learned from him, like hearing this from somebody, who understands the intolerance that religion has caused and the wars Um, the minute a person says something bad about, religion in any way, all of a sudden they'll get attacked as being the Antichrist, evil, a Satanist, or whatnot. And, I know better. I know that Satanism and Luciferianism are not the same. My first comment I made to the guy who made that comment, I said, I used the word Satanism because I was under the impression that he thought that Luciferianism was Satanism. Because if you do understand what Lucifer means, then you shouldn't relate it to evil at all. At all. And, but anyway, all that set aside, none of it matters except what is the message that's being conveyed. And the message that's being conveyed by many people who are considered to be evil by some seems to be a message of tolerance and understanding and acceptance of the world we live in. Whereas the people who claim to have a full belief system seem to be oppressing others, holding people back, trying to keep, look at what the religious right has done to this country alone. I mean, it's not even worth going into the details. So I'm not one who's opposed to religion. I'm opposed to organizing against other people as a religion and using that as a buffer to say that you're right and they're wrong. And so I guess the world needs more manly halls. It does. Anyway, that was just all I got, I guess, and wanted to get that out there. Anything else? Yeah. Have a good day.